Hello, America. Dave Hodges here. I'm the host of the Common Sense Show. We are the show that is freeing America one enslaved mind at a time. And we stand for God, family, country, and we have a special place in our hearts for the oppressed, and we give that attention too. We want rule of law, and we want those who violate the rule of law, especially those in power, to be punished appropriately, like the rest of us are punished. In other words, everyone's equal under the law, and that is not the case in America any longer. Where are the perp walks that we were promised? No, we'll just leave that hanging. Let me explain something that's been going on with the show. It's really interesting. I have been all over the data center thing. And of course, I've been relentless on the Charlie Kirk situation because it's so obvious. You, there's still breaking news that we're going to break here on the show about Charlie Kirk. After 8 months, we're still learning new things. And so I decided to bring Stephen Ben-Nun in, ex-CIA, Jewish by background. He's Christian. If you're not familiar with Stephen, most of you are. Israeli News Live, one of the best investigative reporters I have ever met. And the man is as honest and truthful as the day is long. And so I called him and I need to explain something. We spent weeks trying to get a hold of each other and our communications are blocked. Weeks. Finally, we had to go alternative numbers and go through third parties to set it up since we couldn't talk, email, or text. And finally, we were able to do an interview and we covered a bunch of topics. I tried to play a couple of the segments and something or somebody wrecked the interview. They made the quality so bad that that can't happen. Excuse me. In fact, let me jump to something that just recently happened. I did the same thing with Sarah Westall. And as you know, Sarah and I do a lot of work together and we collaborate on a lot of things. And we tried to do an interview about the data centers. And we had talked about it back and forth, and we both had casually mentioned that we were going to do a joint interview. And we had a heck of a time hooking up and getting our systems in sync. Yeah, we're under attack. We're under attack, and it happens all the time, people. I'm not the only one experiencing this. Many of the people that you listen to on podcasts, when you get into the forbidden topics, whether it's the Charlie Kirk situation, whether it's the intrusiveness and the real goals of the data centers, a lot of interference is happening right now. And it's not so much even overt censorship, it's just outright hacking and interfering. Well, I put some technical people on the interview with Stephen Ben-Nun, and I think we have it salvageable. And I'm going to break it up into parts, and I'm going to release it over time. But in today's segment with Stephen, we're going to talk about why Charlie had to be dealt with and how they did it. And this is pretty stunning. And like I said, I don't think there's a whole lot of people. There's not more than 7, 8 people that have done more research than I have on Charlie Kirk. And Candace probably being the most prominent, Baron Coleman, a lot of really good people, Project Constitution, just great, great people. And we're all interfered with. We've all been harassed. Well, Stephen's one of those guys, and he's looked into it also too. And I made the statement very early on when I realized that we were being lied to about the Charlie Kirk situation and that the FBI explanation was just absurd on its face. In fact, it was so bad. I said, I think Patel and Bongino are following orders, but they're so mad that they're making the explanation so unbelievable. They want the story to stay on the front page because we're outraged by the obvious lies. I don't think that anymore. Probably later segment today, we're going to talk about what Candace has learned about Patel. Anyway, I said very early on, how did Israel kill the Hamas leaders prior to the invasion? They did it electronically. And I said, throw out the 30-06. What happened? Well, I think you're going to enjoy this segment between Stephen Ben-Nun and myself. By the way, we are brought to you by something that you need to have on hand right now. That's gold and silver. Our dollar has been wrecked by debt, but it's being pushed over the cliff by the effects of the war. You go, oh, Dave, the war is over. Well, we'll see if you can really trust any paper the Iranians sign. I'm absolutely have no confidence. And plus, it's going to take weeks and months to get freighters back to the Strait of Hormuz. They all went home. They travel 5 to 10 miles an hour. Yeah, exactly. And we're living on borrowed time with oil right now. We're going to be under stress at least until December. And is that enough to push the dollar over the edge? Could be. What'll happen to the banks? Trouble. What'll happen to your account? Well, Dodd-Frank 2010 says they can keep it. They can bail you in, give you a percentage. They can keep your retirement if it's associated with the bank. Why let them? Noble Gold could convert your retirements under your control and back it with something precious so it's better than the dollar. And they can also teach you what to do about your bank account. Noble Gold is as good as it gets. I've been a customer of Noble Gold for over 9 years, and they never pressure people. So here's what I'm going to tell you. You need to call them 877-646-5347, 877-646-5347. Don't get caught with your proverbial pants down. Be ready for what's coming. All right, we're going to play the clips with Steven here, and I'm going to be really careful about how I set this up. You're going to find this so insightful. So, as I said, we're going to explore some of the things behind why Charlie had to be removed and how it was done. And Steve and I are totally on the same page about the official explanation. I can't believe that Tyler Robinson's attorneys can't tear this apart in court. I don't have a law degree. I've never practiced law a day in my life, and I think I could do better than what I'm seeing. That leads to a lot of insinuations, I know. All right, let's take a listen in. Yeah. Hey, Stephen, I want to ask you a question because we talked about this
Sure.
off air. Um, I, I'm just going to say I said this very early on in the Charlie Kirk assassination, post-assassination. I said it wasn't a 30-06. I don't even believe it was a gun. I said Israel had all the motives, and I went through all the motives they had to unalive Charlie, calling out Netanyahu, refusing to take his 150 million, saying that Gaza was a genocide. He said all that on the PBD podcast shortly before his death. Then he called for an audit because the donors and TPUSA Inner Circle were doing illegal things with money that were all politically motivated for a nonprofit, and you can't do that. And so I said they had a lot of motive to take him out. And I said, and the 30-06 ain't true. I said, how did Israel kill all of the uh, leaders in Gaza for Hamas? They did it electronically. And I said, I flipping guarantee you that Charlie Kirk died electronically. Tell the audience what you told me yesterday.
Well, I'll start off first by Hezbollah's pagers. They were rigged with Petin. That was actually done in Iran, believe it or not. That's why Hezbollah trusted the shipment when they got them, is because they were shipped to Iran. They were then armed in Iran and then shipped to Hezbollah.
Hmm.
Early on, Phil Turney from the USS Liberty, I asked him one day what he thought about it. And he said, Steve, look for the microphone. He said, you know as well as I do Israel's capability after what they did to Hezbollah. Look at that. And at the time, I wasn't giving that much thought, but Phil made me really think about it. So that and Project Constitution had got me to do an interview with this guy that was looking at the mic, and I said, it can't be the mic. I said, the mic's on over here, and over here is where the hole goes into his neck. It never shifts to that side. I said, it can't be. Eventually, Colin finds where he's wearing the receiver on his waistline for the microphone, a microphone transceiver there that he has on his waistline. And we got some more information. We saw bad bruises on his hand. And in one video there, I saw the back of his neck, like right here. If you're watching it closely, it bulges out before his head ever goes down. So then I thought, well, Candace kept saying, you guys are right. It's not a 30-06, but it is an entry wound. And that's where I had a hard time. It just didn't look like an entry wound. And I wasn't thinking of shrapnel. And so then I'm like, all right, the neck did bulge out. So, all right, so something went in, something hit that, something caused it to stop. And now I looked at where the bulge was, and you can only roughly guesstimate. And then I did a trajectory of the hole in his neck, and I knew that it had to come from close to his waist or between his legs. We go back. Well, my Iranian source sends me a video of the Iranian hacker that hacked the emails and the communication with TPUSA. And he confirmed, and we'd already done the video by then, not myself and Colin with Project Constitution. We'd done the video that it was actually the microphone on his waist, or not the microphone, but the transceiver on his waist had exploded.
Hmm.
And he even had a picture where his shirt is pulled up, and you can see the
Seen it.
bruising on his stomach from exactly the square box that he was wearing. So your stomach isn't going to bruise unless there's a blast that happens. Well,
Right.
the Iranians said to me that they said if you pay attention when you look at the air going through his shirt, all the air is from underneath the shirt. That's the gas releasing from the explosive. The Iranians said from the hacking that he did that he discovered in their emails where they're admitting this that they had meant to blow a hole in his chest, but it malfunctioned. The explosive malfunctioned, and a shrapnel piece hit him in the throat instead. And that's what actually ended up killing him. They wanted it to look like he was shot by a sniper. And that's the way they had planted the explosive, was it would go off and detonate right into his chest, and that's how he would be killed. And then they could say he was shot by a sniper, and that's what actually caused it. He said this is the reason why the guy jumps over the table, never goes to Charlie Kirk, grabs up all these different pieces that are there, and something goes to a pocket, the rest that passes somebody else, and then they're out the door.
Yeah.
And it doesn't care about Charlie.
You're
But
talking
you
about
guys
You're
thinking,
talking about Terrell Farnsworth there grabbing up the pieces.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Interesting. Well, speaking of the pieces, I'm going to throw this out here, and I'm sorry, the name has just jumped out of my head, and he's really good at what he does. Um, One of our colleagues played a tape, a police tape, and he had actually FOIA'd it, and they cut off the end of it. But the police tape goes like this. Following an SUV, it was the SUV taking Charlie to the hospital. The door is open and someone's struggling to get out. That's on the tape. And he played this. I don't think they finished the job. And I'm going to dovetail this with something else. I don't know if you ever saw the episode with Candace, but Candace was leaked inside photos of that SUV, and there was plastic shards all over the floor.
yes,
Did you see that?
yes. I've
Yeah,
seen,
so
I've
that
not
kind
seen
of
the
that
video, but I
verifies what
saw.
you're saying about the electronic device exploding.
Yes, Colin actually sent her the picture of the plastic shards on the floor to Candace because he actually knows Candace, and uh, and she saw that on there, and I think that's later where she began to talk about that as well. And it seems like from where whatever had exploded inside of his shirt as it fell out as they put him into the van. And of course, no, there wasn't a single medical personnel allowed to treat or to do anything with Charlie. They didn't want anybody near him. The Iranians are saying that the reason that was because they could not allow him anybody to touch the body, not the coroner, not no one, because if they did, then they would know how he really died.
Exactly.
And, and that
Exactly.
was the,
And let me tell you, I don't know if you saw this or not, but Ryan Mata and some other people have done this too, but Ryan Mata did the best work on this. Um, he went back and looked at IP inquiries. And what he found was, first of all, you go back to June and July, IP addresses in Tel Aviv were researching Deidre Omari. Who's that? The chief medical examiner of Utah, the state of Utah. And then Dr. Trotter, the attending physician at the hospital. And then the hospital was also on the IP addresses. Now, here's where it gets really weird. The night before, September 9th, both in Huntsville, where the FBI regional headquarters is in that area, and also in Tel Aviv, a search came up. Tyler James Robinson. And Ryan Mata ran this on X. And I'm thinking, I didn't even know the guy's middle name until they ran this. And I learned his middle name from this. They were researching the accused murderer the night before. Now, if that's not incriminating, I don't know what is. But I got to tell you, Stephen, you're going to like this story. I'm not going to mention who I was with. He's a friend of mine, and I don't want to say anything that's going to affect his business. But he was in Phoenix area, about 60 miles from my home. I live north of Phoenix. And he says, David, oh, I want to spend some time with you. Come on down, go to a dinner. I'm having dinner with some potential investors for a deal he's doing. And I went down there, and some of them were TPUSA people. And I'm hearing the Candace this, F Candace that. It was really, really bad. He wasn't comfortable with it. I wasn't comfortable with it. And so I'm sitting there and he kind of kicks me under the table, like, thanks for not saying anything, because I didn't want to start any stuff because this was his deal. So someone asked me, part of TPUSA, they asked me, well, Mr. Hodges, who do you, and he knew my name. So that was kind of interesting. He says, who do you think did it? I said, I really don't know. Well, what do you think? I said, well, they lost me at the 30-06. And this guy went into a rage against me. I mean, it was like it was a cult, Stephen. It's amazing, these people. And I'll share this with you while I'm telling you the story. There is a well-known pastor, and I'm not going to mention the name because I don't want to start trouble because I actually like the guy. His somebody he knows went to lunch with the inner circle at TPUSA, and that person came back and reported to people I know personally, they're all satanic. Exact
Wow.
quote. And this is a religious person. It's amazing. And I look at this, but we're not done with this story because they're doing AI fakery on Charlie now. And it wasn't just Erica should take over. We all know that's AI crap. Okay. But now what they're doing is Erica Kirk goes on the broadcast they have this week and said, "Oh, Charlie wouldn't do anything without being recorded." But all these recordings, well, they didn't end up going public, but we have them. And so we want when people call in to play an answer that Charlie would have said to the question you're asking. You want to talk about a psyop? I mean, this is a huge AI psyop they're going to do with the legacy of Charlie. It's crazy.
What
So,
an insane, these people have lost it. One thing that really kind of struck me was after Colin and I did this interview and we played the clip of the Iranian hacker and what he's saying on there, I got a email from a guy that his whole family is part of the Mossad. And he said, I watched your interview. Of course, he cussed me out not long before that because I didn't support Israel anymore. And he said, I just wanted you to know you finally got it right. And he said, but he said it was funny. He says, my daughters didn't realize who's behind it. And of course, his daughter's Mossad. She speaks Farsi and Arabic.
yeah.
Um, and she does a lot of translating documents through the spy network that they do over there. And he said, but my wife is the one that really knows the most about what goes on about these issues here. He said, so I actually said I was kind of in the dark on this as well. So I asked her, he says, why did they kill Charlie? He said, she stopped, she looked back at me, and she said, this is bigger than Israel, and it was bigger than Netanyahu, but he had to go.
Let me ask you a question. Is it because the founders of Israel, not Israelis, are going to use that government to bring in something bigger to rule over the planet?
That's exactly what he goes into after that.
And what we're going to do here is stop that there, but I wanted you to hear the Charlie part. But what we know is there are real strong political reasons behind it that supersede President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu, although Netanyahu is right in line with us. I think Trump's been dragged into this, there's no question. So, anyway, how are we looking at this? Well, we've just seen how we lost a major political figure, a future major government figure. No question, he was primed for high office, probably president, and he snatched from us, JFK style. And you heard how it was done. And Stephen came to the same conclusion I did, independent of each other. And you should be outraged and furious. And this is why right now I'm in a mode where I don't believe anything that comes out of Washington right now. And I worry for Trump's safety, and I'm going to get into that in a separate podcast at one time, because he's not doing this intentionally. His heart was with the American people. He showed that over and over and over again. What we're seeing right now is not Donald Trump making free and independent decisions. And that probably will make him very angry that I'm saying that, but I still love him. He's been great for America. He was the best choice we had, and he still could be again today. I just shudder to think what are the forces behind this that are preventing that from happening. And those are the same forces that took Charlie Kirk from us. I'm Dave Hodges. This is the Common Sense Show.